Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Lija Chiari. I am a manager with JVS Toronto Pre-Arrival Services, and I'll be your host for today. Just to introduce our wonderful panel, which I'll do in a little bit. I just want to see a show of hands. If you can hear me properly, please use the raise hands button so I can see that you all can hear me. Okay, I see some hands coming up. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we're here today for our webinar, Interviewing for Success, in partnership with Magnet from Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson. And we have a few things before we get started. So the first is I would like to do a land acknowledgement. The land acknowledgement is a formal statement often spoken at the beginning of a public event that is taking place on land originally inhabited by or belonging to Indigenous people of Canada. If you're joining from a land that is originally inhabited by Indigenous people, we encourage you to do the same and acknowledge the land that you are meeting us from. So we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto, where I am located, is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So a few housekeeping guidelines before we get started. This session is being recorded. The length is approximately 1 hour. All participants, please keep your lines muted. We have done that for you, so you'll not be allowed to unmute yourself. But we do have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the session. We ask you to please type your questions in the questions window. If you're not too familiar with GoToWebinar, you need to find the button that says Show Controls, and then you will see the questions. So you can type your questions through the webinar. Please take time to complete the post-webinar survey, which will be sent to you by email. That helps us improve our programming and know if this is helpful for you. The recording will be shared on that post-webinar email, but you can also always ask your employment specialist for it. And last but not least, some of us are hosting from home, so please be patient with us if we have any technical difficulties. A little bit about Canada InfoNet. Most of you attending today are our clients already. Canada InfoNet is our pre-arrival employment acceleration and mentorship program. It is a free national 8-week program delivered by JVS Toronto with other industry partners like Magnet. We have served over 10,000 immigrating professionals since 2016. And in our program, you are connected to a dedicated employment specialist that will support you in your career plan and preparation for job search in Canada with services such as resume and cover letter preparation, workplace culture expectations, employer webinars, industry expert webinars, connection to a Canadian mentor through our online platform, access to our online job matching platform, which is Magnet, and other services such as soft skill sessions on customer service and business writing. So if you are already our client, please make sure to connect with your employment specialist. I know that some of you have not yet been connected to an employment specialist. You will be soon, so please stay in touch. Okay, let me not delay this much longer. I will introduce our panelists. And so we have today Maurice Fernandes, who is the Maurice is an award-winning HR recruitment professional with over 20 years of experience specializing in campus recruitment, employment brand, and career education. Maurice was responsible for an early talent acquisition program that was recognized by Canada's top employers for young people. Excuse me. Maurice has spoken about HR recruitment best practices and labor trends at a variety of conferences and campuses and contributed to articles for the Globe and Mail and the Canadian HR Reporter. Maurice is currently a career education manager at the Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson Career, also known as TMU, Co-op Student and Success Center. We also have Nisreen Rawdah. She's the Senior Manager of Program Engagement at Magnet TMU. She is focused on supporting the future of work and economic development in Canada, integrating technology with programs that provide infrastructure, resources, and thought leadership to communities across Canada. Navigating Canadian systems across nonprofit, public, private, and entrepreneurial landscapes to enrich inclusive economic growth, workforce development, and other social innovation initiatives. Bridging industry and community, Nisreen keeps connecting the dots and driving solutions for complex problems. We also have joining us today, Glen Reyes and Kathleen Moore, who will be doing the mock interview, and Nisreen will introduce them later. So I will pass it over to Nisreen. Thank you so much, and I'll be back for the question and answer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So today we are going to be doing a presentation on interviewing for success. And we are covering applicant tracking systems, the importance of soft skills, and we will be providing a live demonstration of how to do an interview. All right, so a brief agenda. We've already done our welcome and introductions and the land acknowledgements, so we'll get started on our very first topic. We can all agree that immigrating to a new country takes courage and determination. Immigrants in Canada, have endless potential, but experience challenges and barriers to their success as newcomers. They also have less opportunities and more barriers in that. So when it comes to finding work, employers don't often recognize educational and professional qualifications from outside of Canada, meaning that newcomers cannot always access higher paying jobs and may have to take jobs for which they're overqualified. Limited social networks to support their search and language barriers can also discourage applicants and job seekers. So JBS offers support to immigrants and to various people so that they can reach their full potential and define their future here in Canada. So through the programming that JBS offers and through the support of their partners such as, Toronto Metropolitan University, Magnet, and the Career Center, we can help diverse talent really aspire for more with greater confidence. So today's event, Interviewing for Success, is really about putting your best foot forward when applying for a job. And for today's webinar, we will be sharing some best practices before taking you through a live interview. And this will hopefully answer some of the questions that you may have and give you a less sort of staged demonstration of what's available online. So we're highlighting the importance of soft skills and something that can really truly make you stand out from other candidates. So let's get started on applicant tracking systems. So an applicant tracking system is it just helps companies organize and track candidates for hiring and recruitment purposes. So let's say about maybe companies with over 500 employees use an ATS, And that software is used to sort of sort through resumes, and it scans your resumes for various things, and it makes it structured in such a way for recruitment and for HR to easily scan and go through content. You know, a lot of ATS systems will weed out unqualified candidates. And you can see here, we've really highlighted that there is something called a knockout question. And basically someone who doesn't meet the minimum criteria for that was outlined in that job posting will be eliminated. And knockout questions examples include, like, are you willing to relocate? Can you lift 50 pounds? Do you have X certification? So really an ATS is, it automates the time consuming bits. And I would like to highlight though, when you submit your resume to an ATS, yes, the ATS is a gatekeeper in such a way that it will determine whether your application is moving forward or not. But and we know how frustrating it is rather to be rejected. But what's more frustrating is not really knowing why or how. So really, we want to give you some tips on how to make it through that ATS, and just reassure you that regardless of the situation, there is a human on the other side, and an ATS cannot replace a human. And I know that Maurice has a lot of experience in this, so I invite you to sort of chime in here if you have anything to add, or if I missed anything.
No, thank you, Nisreen. So just to build on what Nisreen said, and again, I just want to say thanks to JVS and Magnet for hosting me. I myself I'm a first-generation immigrant, so I can empathize with what a lot of you are going through and begin this journey to immigrate to Canada to find work and employment. So, you know, I just wanted to state that. The other thing too that I wanted to state is I used to be the human behind the applicant tracking system. So for 20 years, I worked in HR recruitment, and I would receive resumes. Like, the original applicant tracking system was the mail, right? Like, I would have to, like, you know, pull open an envelope and read your resume, right? And now they've become, you know, went to fax machine, and now email, and now these tools. The one thing I always want to keep in mind, and Nisreen really touched upon this, is that it is still a human making the decision. Not all applicant tracking systems are created equally, and not all have those functions that you may be hearing about that say, well, these will automatically knock you out if you don't meet this criteria. That's not the case. Think of it more as a project management software tool, and it's just that, a tool. So ultimately, though, a human will see your resume. Whether they spend a lot of time with it, that's a different story. And I'm sure that our partners at JVS have some really good webinars and tools for you to make sure that your resume does stand out. But like Nisreen said, there is a human, and I can attest to being that human at the other end of it.
Thanks, Maurice. Okay, so to dive deeper into this, how to optimize your cover letter and your resume for an ATS. So yeah, it's not accurate enough to replace a human, but what you want to do is you want to be noticed, right? So to increase your chances of getting past the ATS, or, you know, really getting your resume read by a Maurice, here are some tips to help you do that. So you want to customize your resume and cover letter to the actual job description. So it's not good to just do a copy and paste, of course. You want to make sure that it's purposeful. And any job that you're applying to, you want to apply with intent anyway. Like, if you really, you know, this is a place where you're going to be spending your time, and it's not just about finding any job, even though it can feel that way sometimes under certain circumstances. You have to do what you have to do, but we really encourage people to actually, like, specify their application to the job. Read through the job description and make sure you put, you know, the right job title, put it in your resume. Make sure that your resume is like, if pretend you're in that person's shoes, basically. If you were reading this, are you a good fit for that role? So you want to match your resume and cover letter to those keywords that you'd find in the job description. So if it said, it really emphasized marketing, and you don't really have marketing listed on your resume once, like, that's an example, right? So use long form and acronym versions of keywords. And the most ATS friendly format is chronological, which means your last job should appear first. That means it's easier for the person who's reading your resume to really know, like, where were you, where'd you come from, where have you been? So you don't want to use tables, columns, or graphics. And you want to use a screen friendly traditional font. So you don't want to use headers or footers, and obviously the standard resume sections, so experience and education, just making it friendly for the person who's reading it on the other side, and make sure that you follow instructions. So if they said, you know, send this resume cover letter to this email with this subject line in the email, make sure you pay close attention to those things. And of course, save your files in the format specified. So some people like to get really creative, which is great, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily help you in an ATS format, or for that ATS to read your resume.
Or even the recruiter, right? That's why the format that we're really emphasizing is reverse chronological, because it's so much easier for the recruiter or the hiring manager to really figure out. The other thing too that you can do to help yourself is really, like, as you're coming over to Canada, you have some wonderful experiences, right? But not all of them will be relevant. So you may just create a section that is relevant work experience, right? And then only put the projects that are in that section. And then your other experiences can go in another section called other experiences, and really just emphasize more of the skills, the soft skills that we'll be talking about. And that really gives you the breadth, because I know what happens sometimes is that, you know, some of you may have, like, you know, number of years of experiences that you want to really showcase, and you're trying to showcase in 2 pages or even 1 page. And what happens is you just cram all that information in there, and it doesn't matter if a robot's reading it or a human's reading it, it just can't be processed, right? So you don't have to create, like, you don't have to have all your experiences in the resume. It's the most relevant to the job posting that are really going to get you from that, you know, pile of people that we may call to that pile of people that we want to interview, right? That's the key of the resume and the cover letter. It's for you to get the interview.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice. We're going to move on to soft skills now. So really, this is a key differentiator between 2 qualified applicants is how well they can really exemplify these soft skills. So what are soft skills? So soft skills, sort of like, these are your personal attributes. These are your behaviors and your work habits. And while hard skills refer to your actual technical ability and your factual knowledge and what you need to do the job, soft skills are what really help you do the job effectively, and how to use your technical abilities with other people, with your team, with collaborators. So soft skills really encompass that personal and social communication and self-management behaviors. And regardless of your seniority level, or regardless of how many years of experience you have, you know, soft skills are crucial to hiring decisions, to promotions, to any of those things. In a recent survey, almost 80% of employers value soft skills over hard skills, because hard skills, or, you know, technical things, you can train and you can teach, but soft skills, it's a bit of a harder thing to necessarily, like, do that, right? So immigrants offer a great deal of soft skills, and actually Maurice has a lot to offer on this topic, because he works with people constantly to kind of unveil, I feel like, these skills that might not always be recognized on the forefront of things. I feel like they're more so, you know, they're that lived experience, and Maurice, like, I'd love to hear a little bit from you in terms of what you can tell us about that immigrant lived experience and what skills sort of come from that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Nisreen. So I think one of the things that sometimes we get really hung up on is, well, I don't have, it's the experience trap, right? How do I get the job without the experience? I can't get the experience without the job. But I think it's important that we kind of break out what experience means. It's not always paid experience. It's always, and it's not always, it doesn't always have to be paid North American or Canadian experience. It's more the transferable skills that you bring across, built upon soft skills. Full disclosure, Magnet knows this. I can't stand the term soft skills because they're so hard to learn, right? Soft skills are actually your interpersonal, those skills that make you human, right? Like learning, being able to learn new things, right? Like I will send you on an SQL course. I will send you on an upgrade for data analytics, right? But for you to communicate well with others or work in a team, that's extremely difficult for me to justify paying out of HR's training budget, right? Now, as immigrants, you have a world of knowledge, both technical that you may have developed back home, but also those lived experiences that I don't think we give enough credit to, right? So think about yourselves that you're making this move over to another country now. So think about the resourcefulness that you had to do. So when you see on a job description, we're looking for someone that has resourcefulness or can get things done or has the ability to work with little resources, right? In an ever-changing, fast-paced environment, guess what? That is what you're doing right now, right? You're setting yourself up for success. You're building community in a totally different country with, perhaps in a language that isn't even your second or third language, right? So think about that. Also, with regards to languages and speaking multiple languages, right? Canada is a bilingual country, but some of us may be bringing other languages with us. So, how do you make that relevant? When you talk about the intercultural awareness that you have of maybe living in multiple countries before deciding to land in Canada and in our rich multinational society that we really are doing, we're doing a better job of promoting, right? And so that is something that we look for as well. So don't disregard the experience that you're going through as something that you kind of just throw away and it's just the immigrant story. You can put that to the forefront, right? And make that your story and how you navigated these things. So then when you get asked a tough question at work, well, I can figure this out. I took my whole family and moved them from another country to this country, only knowing some English, right? Like you can do this. So that's why I'm always a big proponent and like lived experiences.
Yeah. No, thank you. So lived experience and I think Maurice told us the other day, if you fit or if you have 60% of the skills, if you have 60% of the skills, then go for the job.
Yeah, apply for that job. Like 60% of what they're looking for, please apply for it, right? I think our colleagues at JBS talked about the barriers that you're going to be facing. I don't want you to be a barrier yourself. Right? Like if you are within 60% of what they're looking for, go ahead and apply. Learn the other 40%, right? There's some amazing resources out there that you can get yourself familiar. And it's okay, in the interview you will be asked, right? Well, do you have experience with X? I don't, but here's what I understand X to be, right? I did some research on it and I understand X to do this. And I had maybe with your transferable skills, you had, maybe you used X's competitor. Or you can talk to someone about, well, back home, I didn't have experience with X, and this is how I became knowledgeable, right? In an interview, that's what your hiring manager wants to hear. They want to know how you're going to overcome challenges. They want to know how you overcame problems, because all of us here on our daily, we probably get asked a question that we're like, I'm not too knowledgeable on that. But guess what? We were hired because we now know how to figure that out, right? And so we'll come back to our manager and say, hey, I did some research on this. You can do that in an interview. You can honestly say, I do not have experience with that or work experience with that, but here's what I've done to learn about it, right? And again, that scores you huge points in the interview process because now you're showcasing the ability to learn, problem solve, and if you give a proper example, how you overcame challenges, right?
Yeah, super crucial, super key. Thank you. So emotional intelligence, and then obviously like there's, it's intelligence, it's emotional, and it's cultural. There's like sort of like a widening scope of the different sort of skill sets and what people are looking for when they are hiring people. And intercultural awareness has become a very growing, for obvious reasons, thing that people are looking for. Can you really thrive in a diverse environment in our very globalized world? So soft skills and the future of work, and this is sort of the jam that Magnet's all about right now. So the future of work and what does employment look like, and what do businesses what are they looking for? What do they need to thrive? So this is a really important sort of point that I want to mention today. Active listening, speaking, and critical thinking. Those three skills were identified as the most in demand by a report from RBC, sorry, on the future of work. So active listening, speaking, and critical thinking are the top of that list. And all of those things are things that we can ourselves practice, try to become more aware of, and try to improve ourselves without having to go to school or taking a course. This is just our own sort of, oh, these are things that are very important to employers, and these are things that I should focus on improving. So almost 75% of an employee's success comes from soft skills. So that goes back to that conversation that Maurice just sort of went through. You can learn, you can pick up on things, you can get situated in a job, and if you meet that, like let's say you get that 60%, the really important point there is like that other 40% is growth. And I know that you mentioned if you meet all the qualifications of a job, it means you're overqualified, right? And there's no room to grow. So I would say that, yeah, the soft skills are what's going to allow you to grow successfully for that remaining percent. And really, what does it mean to improve your soft skills? So once you've identified places or things that you maybe need to work on or add to your repertoire, what is your upskilling plan? What does that look like? So self-awareness is probably the most, another skill, mind you, but having self-awareness to know what you need to work on is one thing. Understanding things about yourself through different personality tests, or really just asking for feedback from your peers, like, hey, what can I work on? Or speaking with your supervisor if you're already employed, or having JVS, work with you on identifying that. You can explore some online resources. You can do some reading. We put some examples here on the screen, but free online courses, there's so many. There are so many. I know that Maurice might have some recommendations as well, and then practice. So it's all about being aware, having some sort of tactical plan, and then practicing that. Maurice, do you know of any online courses that specifically test your soft skills or really like into that?
Yeah, so I think right now LinkedIn Learning has invested quite a bit on some of those. Yeah, I'm really, I don't like using the word soft skills, but interpersonal skills. And you can choose. It's totally right. That's a me thing, not a you thing. But you can actually go on and access a lot of those resources. It is a pay for usage model. However, LinkedIn Learning does give free 30-day trials, and as part of your immigration journey, if you are actually setting yourself up with library cards for the cities or regions that you're living in, if you've got like a Toronto Public Library card, you actually access the entire suite of LinkedIn Learning resources for free. I'm sure our friends at JVS also has some resources that they can help you with those types of courses too. But LinkedIn Learning is great for like both the interpersonal and technical skills. Google's giving away some courses right now for free too in analytics, data analytics, not so much in the soft stuff, sorry, the interpersonal stuff. So that's another area where I pointed students and early talent to go check out, especially if someone's interested in data analytics or even Google Analytics. And the one thing here on practice, and I know that we're going to be going into a mock interview, interviewing is a skill that you can develop like a muscle. You can work at it and get better at it. Right? Glen and Kathleen are going to go through some great scenarios and you can learn from that. One other thing I always tell people to do is practice, record yourself, right? Chances are the first interview you're going to go through is video. So record yourself on your phone answering some basic questions. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? Start with those two, review it, maybe talk to your colleagues or your counselor over at JVS to review with you. It's uncomfortable. I know I can't stand looking at my